Welcome to PolyCast, an official podcast of Apolyton Civilization Site. Daniel Quick,
Makahlua,
Imran Siddiqui,
Cardamandua,
with guest co-hosts
Locutus,
Neal,
Thorburne.
No innuendo there at all.
None whatsoever. I mean that sincerely. You people just have dirty minds.
it took you this long to figure that out?
No, I knew it, but I just thought I'd reinforce that for the audience in case they hadn't figured it out.
Oh, come on. The audience knew that we're men, cheapers.
episode 67. This is Neal. And with me we have DanQ,
Yes, you do.
Makahlua,
Hello.
Imran Siddiqui,
Hi.
Wouter,
I'm back.
and Thorburne.
Hello.
He's not a computer voice this time.
No.
But what he doesn't know is that we're going to replace all of his spoken words with computer.
Don't give Dan ideas.
In Forum Talk, is domination broke, or is it just me? Is trading in tech the AI is researching for money an exploit? And map regeneration, how about you?
Neal,
In the interview, I was grilled mercilessly about the King of the World series.
from the vault, on Siege being sometimes irrelevant, and OnLive, streaming games without hardware.
And in the Senate, one big stack of doom versus several stacks of doom.
This is Forum Talk, where we investigate hot Civ issues in the forums.
From IM, is domination broke, or is it just me? Myself, personally, I don't think it is broken. I think that the domination victory is just hard to get to. To me, it's just cultural is probably the one I most often see, and I really hate it when it's the computer that makes it, because they usually get it right before I'm about ready to finish with another victory.
I think the key is that the thresholds for population and land area are a little weird in that usually end up hitting the population way before the land area, which especially comes into play if you have a lot of unusable land on the map. Like if you have a big stretch of desert or peaks or whatever, or some weird islands out in the middle of nowhere, it can be really difficult to get all that land. So you usually do end up hitting population way before land.
I can agree with that, especially if you're in a larger map and everybody's more concentrated in one area. If you're not hitting the other areas in the world, the other continents, then likely you have a better chance of dominating everybody population-wise long before even touching the surface of the world.
Yeah, it's like the population limit may as well not even be in play, because I've never had a game in which that came after the land value.
Yeah, half the time I'm sitting there with the population limit way past it, and then I'm just, well, if I conquer this little tiny bit of territory more, I could win, but I don't want that victory. It's not broken, but it's not particularly hard, maybe.
I'm only 3.5% away from domination victory. Okay, let's take these couple of cities, and now I'm 2.8% away. Okay.
Yeah.
I like to think of it as a backup in case my plans go wrong.
I very rarely even aim for a domination or even conquest victory, because, like I said before, it's more likely you're going to get one of the others, cultural or space race or even time victories, long before you even are close to cultural, unless you're just, maybe if you use the world builder and set yourself up really good to begin with.
To me, it sort of feels like a bit of a cop-out victory almost. Conquest victory, okay, so you conquered the whole world. That's kind of awesome. And domination, oh, wow, I conquered 2/3 of the world. Yay. Is that really so special? I understand why it's there, but it's not the most satisfying victory to me, personally. I always go for conquest if I go for a warlike victory.
T Send Tome 1 says you can always edit the victory infos file and set them to whatever percentages you want. True, but still based on land and population.
Yeah, plus you'd have to find the right percentages, because if you get it too low, then you're finishing up the game long before you really want to. It's over before you know it, and if you set it too high, then you'll never be able to reach it.
And if you're going to set it that high where you can't reach it, you might as well just turn it off.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could set the percentages really high, and then if anybody says, you don't play with Domination Victory's on, that's cheating. Yes, Domination Victory is on. Or you could set it really low to like 5% of the population in world area. Woohoo! Really, I got a victory in the game. Beat that score.
I built a city. I win.
Dave Murray says that move up a difficulty level. If you're already playing at D&D, don't start your wars until the Renaissance.
House rules.
Trade ethics and endless guilt. Lemon Merchant started a poll. Is trading a tech to the AI researching for money and exploit? Sometimes in a game I find myself a little pressed for cash. I notice that Izzy is 3 turns away from Tech X and she has 300 gold to trade. I have Tech X. Let's see if she's stupid enough to give me money for it. Goodness, she give me all 300. Most of us probably do it. Sometimes you have to. At least at the lower levels, it's an exploitable game mechanic. But being an exploit, does that make it like cheating? Question mark. Now, Lemon Merchant specifically cites the bug mod, but as is pointed out, you do not need the bug mod to necessarily know this if your espionage is high enough, at least to a particular AI. But I find myself in the majority category, which is exploit, schmexploit, show me the money. You may decide that depending upon what the technology is, she's going to get it in 3 turns, for instance. And sure, she has 300 gold, but do I really want her to have that technology 3 turns in advance in exchange for the 300 gold, particularly if it's a military technology and on more higher difficulty levels? But at times, depending upon the technology, your trade relations with that empire, it may be advantageous because, hey, that could be 300 gold you could be using to upgrade some units of yours.
And 300 gold they can't be using to upgrade their units.
Yes, exactly.
Well, for me, my question is, isn't that what civilizations are about? Exploiting each other? Basically, that's been throughout history. Civilizations exploiting each other to make themselves better.
Wow, a realism argument that works in gameplay. Who knew it was possible?
Well, from the AI's perspective, I mean, especially late in the game, 3 turns of free research for 300 gold, that's a pretty good deal late game.
It's a pretty good deal for them any time in the game, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the AI is really bad at early rushes. Does that mean you shouldn't rush early? You can handicap yourself all you want if you really enjoy that sort of thing, but at some point you're going to have to accept that the AI is not a human.
It isn't.
Wait, what?
Oh no.
Deckhand. It is definitely exploitive as it uses information not normally available to the player. This is almost as bad as attacking units when they aren't at full strength or a city before it has high cultural defense. Why won't the human ever play fair? Question mark. AI plays fair? Does it?
Well, Sid said so. I think it's kind of silly to argue about what sort of ethics and guilt you're feeling over a computer strategy game. Isn't the point of something like this, like Civ or Smack or something, to crush your enemies and hear the lamentations of their women, as in the words of Conan the Barbarian? If you're worried about ethics and guilt, why invade anyone? Because, computer people might die. I think the whole topic is kind of silly. That could be a heartless bastard. I don't know.
That goes without saying.
Well, whether you're going for a diplomatic or a conquest win, it is a competitive game by nature. So, like I said, it's about taking advantage and basically dog eat dog, killer be killed, and all that fun stuff.
Lemon Merchant says that it just feels a little cheesy sometimes. Like the high-maintenance girl out on a date, taking her companion for a big, expensive dinner, and anything else she can get, then making the poor guy or girl settle for a handshake at the door. Now, that's an exploit. It's an interesting comparison, analogy.
Someone had a bad date.
As we've been getting at, and as the Me and team says, it always requires an investment in espionage, but if you have the espionage, the information is always available. Using an intentionally implemented feature to your advantage is not an exploit, it's good strategy. Indeed.
I exploited the game by conquering my enemy. I don't think I should be allowed to do that.
You shouldn't be allowed to play then.
Razzlesnuff thinks he may regenerate his map too much when he looks around and sees there's too much tundra, desert ice, he does a regen. If there's a resource and he doesn't like that, he doesn't have it or something like that, he regens. And he wonders if this is too much and wondering if everyone else does this, or do people usually just accept the map that they're dealt?
Well, I regenerate with no problems. Actually, like my computer clone has said before on previous podcasts, I usually go into the world builder and set it how I like anyway, but I especially regenerate if when you're on that single island out in the middle of nowhere or stuff like that.
Better known as the DanQ start.
Calm down over there.
Yeah, in King of the World number 6, when I was playing as Huayna Capac, I kept hitting regenerate, but it kept giving me nothing but deserts and peaks in the Big Fat Cross, so I just ended up sticking with it.
God.
Progressively get more deserts, for instance, as you continue to regenerate, because the game is like, I told you where your start is. What is it going to take? One person here, I consider regenerating quote-unquote cheating, but I don't care if anyone else does it in single player. I guess he really doesn't think it's cheating that much, otherwise he would care.
That's not... I mean, come on now. If you're in single player, how does it matter? Cheating, please. It's not like he's going into World Builder.
Really, if, as Oynaz says, the game is about having fun. If I have a start which does not seem fun, I regenerate. I do the same thing. And actually, I didn't used to regenerate. I used to keep forgetting about that option, and I'd be like, oh, I hate my starts. Then I'd go exit to main menu and then do the setup all over again. Well, that saves you time regenerating if you like your settings otherwise and you just want a better starting location. You just hit regenerate. Now, admittedly, I used to run Civ 4 on another computer of mine that is closer to the minimum system requirements, and it actually was faster to start a new game than to hit regenerate, but that's not the case anymore.
The hamsters that were running around inside your case got too tired when you hit regenerate.
They had to stop and take a breath before they started running on their wheel again.
When I used to play, or the few times I do play, I never used to regenerate, so I don't know. I just played whatever I had. See what happens.
Yeah, I mostly do that. But sometimes I'd be playing a Financial 7. I specifically wanted to start on a coast, and it would not give me coast. Give me coast. Give me coast. Come on, give me coast.
It knows.
I know.
Let's screw with Mackie.
For me, it usually, for some reason, likes to put me on at one of the poles, no matter who I pick or what map type I pick. I'm always at one of the poles, and I hate that. I always like more of the subtropic temperate climate.
Yeah, that's why I've been setting my maps tropical for a long time now, because it lessens the amount of tundra. I mean, you get a little bit more desert, but you get a lot less tundra.
Yeah, I guess I'm along the same path as most people here. I just only regenerate if the map is really, really bad. Otherwise, I just see it as an extra challenge. It can be interesting to play against just bad terrain. You're playing against the map as much as against the AI then.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Glaive Master had said, I never regenerate a map since I don't know enough about my surroundings to do so. By the time I know enough, I can't regenerate, so I tend to make the best with what I've given. Though I restart a lot of games if they aren't going well for me. Now,
what?
Your starting location really does help as a predictor in terms of how well you are likely going to do. It's never a guarantee, but look at your starting location and decide, okay, what could this city become, and when can it become that? And is that going to give me a good foundation to continue to spread? Blitzkrieg says, I'll regenerate a map if there are no food or hills at all in the region. I've tried to continue games like this far too many times and it never ends well for me.
Oh, come on. Those type of games build character.
When I play a random map, I usually tend to stick with it until around the Code of Laws era. Then, yeah, usually I'll determine whether this game is going well or not.
Towards what Glaive Master was saying, not knowing enough about his surroundings to do so. That's why as early on as possible in the game, I start to scout out, preferably with a scout, of course. So then as you're finding the early technologies like bronze working for copper, animal husbandry for horse, iron working for iron, and of course you know about ivory right away, then you have an idea of, okay, this is where I am right now, and then as soon as I get those particular technologies, I can see at a glance on the map where I need to go. And it could very well be by a code of laws. For instance, I'll know, okay, I need to be able to expand this far from where I am right now, but that is really going to hurt me maintenance-wise. Am I going to be able to secure that spot and build that up and still have an economy to then be able to take advantage of that resource? And if it's looking to be too far away, then maybe, yeah, at that point it's like, well, time to abandon this game and start something else.
I usually go the easy route to see how well the starting location is. I'll just open up a World Builder and take a look real quick, though some might consider that to be cheating.
Yeah, I guess most people would consider that to be cheating. But yeah, I mean, if it's single player, I mean, I think Imran said it earlier, who really cares? Do whatever you want as long as you're having fun. I mean, that's the important part here.
Yeah.
And Antilogic said that I took this from another angle. I regenerate when the start looks too similar to my last game. I want to play something different each time.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If my last game was crap, I definitely want something different next time.
Welcome to an interview segment where we hold conversations with key individuals in the Civ community.
That brings us to where Neal is on the hot seat. That's not a reference to the multiplayer option, just so you know. The King of the World series over at CFC. It is a series focusing on playing Civ 4 leaders on Earth maps in order to better understand them in their historical context. I'm quoting directly from you here, Neal. It sacrifices the exploration phase of the game for consistency and a chance to explore the various opportunities and challenges faced by the actual civilizations represented in the game, quote-unquote. The series is currently in its 11th, with Darius I, 15 civs, Earth, Immortal, and Epic, which began on March 24th. It is the first to play on Immortal level after the last 4 on Emperor and the 6 on Monarch level before that. A series of questions for you here, Neal.
Okay.
First one is, how do you decide which civilization and leader to play as?
Well, it's a combination of things. I mean, more often than not, I'll put up a poll. Let the peanut gallery, as they call it, decide.
So have you ever had a poll where there didn't seem to be a clear consensus on what people wanted?
Only about 90% of them.
Oh, okay.
More often than not, I'll have an idea of who I want to play, and I'll just kind of use the poll to confirm that. If there's enough interest in what I want to do, as long as it's in the top 1 or 2, I'll do it. But occasionally I'll want to do something and all the interest is somewhere else, so I'll end up doing that instead.
You know, you could just set up the poll saying, for instance, I'm going to play as Darius, all right? And then your answers would be yes and okay as the poll options.
It's not quite that ham-fisted, but...
I guess a related question. In one instance, you played as de Gaulle. Have you considered, say, returning to France to play as Napoleon and perhaps approach other civs like that in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get through all the civs first before returning. But yeah, there's enough variations in the different Earth maps and the different leaders that returning is always an option later on.
Yeah, I guess all these maps seem to have 18 or even 34 civs. Has there been any demand for games with maybe less civs?
The 34 civs especially, the maps can be so ridiculous with some civs not even getting a full big fat cross to develop before they're hemmed in. In the current game, as Darius, I'm playing with kind of only the ancient civs, so that's a little cut down. It's down to, I believe it's 14 civs.
Ah, okay.
Which kind of makes diplomacy and such a little bit simpler. But that's kind of the charm of the Earth map, is just having the diplomacy screen that's almost incomprehensible.
I didn't know that I would call it charm, but I guess to each his own.
And essentially, it kind of forces you to play with the civs around you while accepting that in far-off lands, there's whole different diplomacy trees kind of going on, which to me is a little bit more interesting than kind of having everyone right there at the start.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Still, I prefer playing with no more than, say, 9 or 10 civs myself. If nothing else, it's a resource hog. And it's just, yeah, you have to keep going and going in terms of if you're on a conquest roll.
Yeah, the Earth map is a tough one to get a conquest victory on. I've done it once and come close a couple of other times. It does kind of become a fait accompli once you're the big dog on the map.
Yeah.
But it's kind of that way with Thal games.
Now, I'd asked before, how do you decide which civilization and leader to play as? The most current game you're playing as Darius because his unique unit is the Immortal, and you've now shifted to the Immortal level. Why did you decide to go to the Immortal level from Emperor? Was this for comparable reasons, why you went from Monarch to Emperor last October, where you indicated that Monarch was being awfully easy, quote-unquote?
Well, I enjoyed Emperor, but the victories were coming a little too easily, and in addition on the Earth maps, due to the fact that it's a scenario rather than a proper game, the AI doesn't get a lot of the bonuses that it would otherwise get on the higher difficulty levels. So, Immortal isn't really Immortal. As someone put it, it's kind of a weird cross between Immortal and Noble, in that, the AIs start out with warriors rather than being upgraded to archers, and they don't start with the archery tech and things like that. In addition, the fact that you kind of know what you're dealing with on the map kind of gives you another advantage that you wouldn't otherwise have. I figured that it was time to move to a higher difficulty level just to give it a little bit more of a challenge.
So related from that, the challenge then, is that why you shifted from normal to epic speed as of Game 5 last September?
The shift to epic was simply because, especially if you're going to be playing a military game, you simply don't have enough turns in the game on the Earth map to play a military game. The map is simply too big. You can do it, but you have to start so early, and the size of the map just makes epic, or even marathon, but I'm a little hesitant to go that far, much better speeds to play at.
So would you say, now that you're in epic speed, it has passed its probationary period, now that you have more than double number of the games on epic than normal? Because when you started with epic, you said you were trying it on a probationary basis.
Yeah, I think it earned its way to full-time status.
Now, the second game currently has the dubious distinction of being the one in the series that was abandoned, which, as you said, nearly turned you off Civ 4 for good, quote-unquote. And this was July of 2007, weeks after Beyond the Swords release. Many, of course. And the last game that was played with the Warlords expansion. A year later, you returned to the series with game number 3 under BTS. Did you come back because of BTS?
I'd actually gotten BTS, I think, halfway through the Frederick game. And I really liked BTS and I'd played it, but Civ kind of took a back seat for a little while. Play it casually, start up a game every once in a while, but I decided the full year later that I had enjoyed putting the games up and just the feedback from playing a game online. So I decided to start the series up again. But yeah, BTS is just a great expansion. That was kind of what turned me off in the Frederick game, was in the modern era, under Warlords, you don't have as many ways of speeding up a war as you do in the Beyond the Sword expansion with espionage and some more two-move units and things like that.
Okay, so there were internal factors, internal being game-related, but also external factors as well.
Yes.
Other things going on in life. As that real life happens to get in the way of gaming for some reason. It's very annoying sometimes.
Darn that real life.
Would you possibly considering a return to playing as Frederick, comparable to Game 2?
I've thought about it. Been tempted a number of times between rounds to think about going back and finishing that game off or restarting it. But for right now, I'm kind of having fun with moving on with Darius, and then the next game I'm thinking about playing with medieval civs and things like that. Once I run out of things to do, yes, it's definitely on the list. I definitely do want to go back and redeem myself for that.
Looking through the list, I see there's only 2-3 European leaders in there. Is there any particular reason that you're avoiding them? Or is that just coincidence?
A little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. It is largely coincidence, but also with Europe, it kind of plays out to where you conquer everyone else on Europe, and then you own Europe, and that's kind of the game from there. Having more land to expand to does have its advantages in terms of being able to change up the gameplay a little bit. I do enjoy playing the European civs. It is kind of a different animal. And yeah, I believe the next game probably will be a Europe game.
So how many civs do you typically place in Europe? I don't know if you're using a fixed scenario with the same civs every time, or...
Yeah, with the Earth 18 map and the Earth 34 map, they kind of have their civs kind of placed down. It's the same leaders, same starting locations, same civs every time. In recent games, we've been kind of changing it up a little, kind of moving some people around, for instance, moving Spain to the coast, because in the base scenario, they end up landlocked and hemmed in by France. So poor Isabella ends up playing a one-city challenge. But for the most part, you do know what you're dealing with in terms of leaders and all that.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, I'm playing a lot of games on an Earth map these days, but with randomly placed civs. So yeah, I'm just wondering how many civs end up in Europe, basically. Is it really, does everyone have enough room to found 2 or 3 cities, other than Spain maybe?
Usually on the Earth 18 map anyway, Germany will end up kind of having 2 cities and then spreading up into Scandinavia. France will end up with Paris, and that's pretty much it. Rome will end up with Rome and usually 1 city down in Sicily. So Europe is pretty tight.
Yeah.
In terms of living space.
Yeah, exactly. It might be a better idea to maybe remove 1 or 2 of those civs then, which I guess you have been doing in the most recent game.
Yes. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Especially with the ancient civs, I wanted Rome to be a threat, because on the normal maps, Rome just ends up kind of having its 2 cities and kind of being forced to play nice simply because it doesn't have the production to be a jerk.
You said in the opening post that you're basically trying to understand civs in their historical context. Have you learned anything interesting in that respect?
Well, it's mostly a matter of highlighting them. Like, as Montezuma, everyone says that Montezuma's unique unit is garbage because if you have iron, it's effectively a weaker swordsman or whatever. But Mexico doesn't have iron. Therefore, the Jaguar warrior ends up getting showcased. As Japan, you have iron to make samurai.
Every civ gets its unique unit, basically.
Yeah, and in addition, having the neighbors around you, having Germany butting heads with France, having, in the 34 civ map, China and Korea butting heads, the Mongols kind of pressing down on all of them. In addition, it kind of makes sense in that with the Mongols, they start out with garbage land, basically, but they have the Keshiks to be able to take better land from the civilizations around them, which is a lot of fun.
Cool.
You had mentioned before about Isabella, practically speaking, being limited to a 1 city, quashed by France. I noticed you actually played a 1 city challenge for game number 10, and that you died, your first genuine loss, quote-unquote. I was curious why you decided to do a 1 city challenge at that time. Was it because it was De Gaulle, or you wanted to change things up, or it was number 10, and so it was a nice round number?
Well, I figured I'd never actually played a 1 city challenge, either in the series or just in a regular offline game. And I decided that, it would be fun, and if you're going to play with 1 city, I mean, what better city to play with than Paris? And I decided to go with De Gaulle over Louis or Napoleon simply because his later traits were a little more conducive to the 1 city challenge. It was a tough game.
I guess it goes to you, Neal. Is there anything that you would like to add that we haven't touched upon so far on the King of the World series?
I don't know. I think we've covered it pretty well.
Woohoo!
This is the Vault segment, with topics cut from earlier episodes but have found relevance again later.
From episode 61 with DanQ, Makahlua, Imran Siddiqui, Cardamandoa, EMSLS, and Rusty Edge.
Slobber and Bear, he was Alexander and he used his phalanxes because his economy and his research were in the tank, and he's fallen behind in tech, so he spammed his unique unit and prevailed, basically.
And he was playing Emperor level, so yeah, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, you got the tool, you might as well use it. Waiting for the economy to improve, you lose your advantage.
Well, yeah, at that level, by the time your economy improves, the AI is going to have a lot more tech than you.
The AI is going to be in space, and you're barely going to have powder.
That's the real story to the thread to me. It's not really about, well, can you do it without siege? Use the edge you have and go with numerical superiority.
The real question is, can you build the replacements and get them to the enemy in time to keep pushing the war forward quickly? And that's usually no.
It's usually, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Well, you could take out one of their cities and slow them down a little bit, but at Emperor level, that doesn't buy you that much. You need to take out like 3 or 4 cities to slow down Emperor level.
But the other thing I thought was interesting here, Artichoker talking about using longbows in the field or longbows paired with crossbowmen to stop the siege-heavy stack of Doom, and he suddenly says, well, he's developed this strategy that siege are the counter to crossbowmen, so I didn't know what they were doing in this caterpillar in the other thread.
Isn't it actually like trebuchet is going to be more effective against the melee units?
Well, now it's true that trebuchets have plus 100% city attack.
Right.
They are 1 strength weaker than catapult. They're at a 4 instead of a 5. Both catapults and trebuchets don't receive defensive bonuses, we knew that. Maximum of 75% damage to an enemy. Both cause collateral damage. Now, yes, trebuchets are better at bombarding city defenses at 16% a turn as opposed to 8. However, catapults are immune to collateral damage from other siege weapons. So I guess if you're wanting your siege units to be bombarding some city defenses, and you have the choice between the two, unless you have some catapults that are upgraded, because if you can get to...
barrage? Or
Yes, barrage, because if the catapult has barrage, then it's also got 16% for bombarding city defenses with that. But if you're looking for something right out of the gate for that, you're limited to how much you can promote, like you don't have to have a great general in that city, then trebuchets are probably the better bet in that respect. But just for going after units itself, given the greater attack value of a catapult, plus it also being immune to collateral damage from other siege weapons, I'd be going with catapult. And I think interesting in terms of how to deal with siege, something that I hadn't actually thought of until I was preparing my response to this topic, but in terms of what are the siege weapons in Civilization? One of them is the unique unit for Korea, which replaces the catapult, which is the Hwacha!
Gesundheit.
I love saying that word.
Yeah, that's the best weapon ever.
Other than the catapult and the Hwacha! Aha, another excuse. We already mentioned trebuchets. What are the other siege weapons in the game?
Cannons.
Number 4?
artillery.
Number 5? What's number 6? There's 7.
There's another modern upgrade after artillery, but I can't think of the name of it.
Well, artillery.
Okay, so there's 6 of 7. What is the 7th? The other unit that's actually categorized as siege weapon is a machine gun.
Oh.
Oh.
Huh?
I wouldn't have even thought of that.
I hadn't either.
Yeah, well, it's not... How is it a weapon? You can't attack with it. It's defense only. I object to your definition.
I think it's mostly because it doesn't take collateral damage that it's categorized that way.
No, I think it's actually to do with the timing of the calculations of damage. Right, so it's not part of the actual combat, it's prior to the combat sort of thing. If you go and attack the city before the city is actually attacked by your units, the machine gun's going to have a go at them. Just like the catapults will have a go, and then the first strike units, and then, so on and so forth. I think it's the order of who does damage to what classifies it as a siege. Bombers and fighters and destroyers and etc. They can all bombard cities, so that doesn't make them siege. So I think that's the way it actually works.
From episode 66 with DanQ, Makahlua, Imran Siddiqui, Kurt Amandua, and Kay Madeline. The OnLive streaming games without hardware.
Dumb. What?
It kind of ties into a little bit what we were talking about of massive multiplayer online games and availability. What happens when pay for this and the service is down temporarily or it's down permanently? Yeah, you buy this game on OnLive and it's like, oh, I want to play right now, but their service is down or my internet access is down. Or, what do you mean you no longer exist?
You're going to need some hardware. You can't just hook it up to your TV and oh yeah.
The article that was linked to was from GameSpot. Sergio Shah, are you trying to get a job at OnLive's PR department? Because, my word, just his opening paragraph. Imagine playing a computer game without any hassles. Drivers, troubleshooting, installations, compatibility, performance, all thrown out the window. Upgrading, a thing of the past. All you have to do is click on the game and seconds later you're playing. That's what OnLive will deliver. Should it work half as well as advertised, expect to see the gaming world thrown into upheaval by a box no bigger than a deck of playing cards. Unquote. I think you are a few cards short of a full deck.
Yeah.
Short of a deck?
What the hell? I'm like, whoa.
As pointed out in the thread by Asher, among others, it doesn't make any sense. You need to have a massive bandwidth, and it's going to cost you a ton in order to actually have some sort of streaming. And, of course, if there's any latency...
Right, it would work great on a single-player game, but on a multiplayer game, I don't see this working very well.
And not just a single-player game, a single-player, like, turn-based game.
Yeah.
Like, not a first-person shooter.
Oh, yeah, can you imagine first-person shooter on this? I'm going, yeah. Get back to us in about 2020 when we have the bandwidth to make this possible.
Yeah, even if your ISP doesn't have such a set cap on bandwidth, my ISP does not, but even if there isn't the extra cost associated with the bandwidth, is the bandwidth really going to be there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And likely not.
No.
At least not anytime soon.
Seriously, they're probably about 5 to 10 years too early to try something like this. And right now, I think only the U.S. and Europe would have the bandwidth.
That's being optimistic, saying 5 years, though.
Yeah, I know.
Very optimistic.
But, well, you know, technology tends to advance faster than you might think, so...
Tell you what, we here in Canada, we have a lot of space that's not occupied by humans, and it's cold. And, you got to keep the servers cool, right? We'll just lease out a whole bunch of our space in the Arctic. You can just line up those servers on there in that frozen north. Might as well make money while we're at it. Let's go for it.
Canada, the world's heat sink.
You got a problem with the server? Just hop on the snowmobile and go fix it. I mean,
Here's the best thing. Snoopy posts something on the thread. It's number 20, the number of the post. It says, for 1440 by 900 resolution is slightly under 1.5 million pixels. So if you want 30 frames per second, you want to refresh the screen 30 times, means 45 million pixels per second. Even 16-bit color at 64,000 colors. That's 90 megabytes per second uncompressed.
Yeah, and he goes on with more stuff, even in compression, it's still...
I think my head just exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did your bandwidth.
And then Asher says, of course, that's not even the main problem. The main problem is latency.
Because if you were playing a multiplayer game, it has to send you the data, send everybody else the data, and then it has to get the data coming in and back from everybody else, and how much lag are you going to end up from this?
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing one of the more Twitch-based type of shooters, even just an extra tenth or a quarter of a second is really important.
And the thing is, of course, with a hard drive or something, the latency is not even nearly as much there because it's very close-knit system in. Even if you have a multiplayer game, I mean, it's pulling from your hard drive and from the server. If you don't have a hard drive, you're just running it off a server.
Yeah, if there's not a local cache for it of some sort.
Yeah. How could that possibly work anywhere near decent?
Yeah, they were showing it at GDC, but I think the server that they were pinging off was also still in the same general area. I mean, not in the same building, but it was somewhere else there in San Francisco area, so they wouldn't have a lag issue there. But get enough people hitting the server and then it trying to compute all this and do all your graphics processing and everything else. Yeah, I know. I just don't see how that's going to be work.
digital distribution is great.
Yeah.
Is one thing, but wow.
I know that's the next step sort of thing, but yeah, you guys are here at least a decade too early.
Welcome to the Senate, where we discuss game strategy. Henyo 10 at CFC asks, which is better, one big stack of Doom versus several smaller stack of Dooms?
There's no such thing as too much stack of Doom.
Practically speaking, you don't want so many units on a particular tile that they go and strike. Not that that's ever happened before. Once.
One big stack of Doom versus several smaller stack of Dooms? How about several big stacks of Doom?
There you go.
Why choose? You can have it all.
What I like to do is build a stack of Doom, and that would be my main attack force, and I might bring up some smaller stack of Dooms along with them, basically to clean up or to fill in the cities as I roll through them. I might also build another big stack of Doom, especially if I can do a pincher attack or if I have a two-front war going on, take on everybody that I need to. One tactic that I do like to use, and this is usually happens when it comes down to the last city, when the AI or the enemy has a huge stack in their last city, and I'm bringing my guys, and I know I'm not going to be able to penetrate into the city, So I'll just cover every single tile with this bunch of smaller stacks and pillage and basically siege them out until the defenses are weak enough and soft enough for me to go in and crush them.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, it gives you time to build more units and move more units in.
Oh yeah, there's a constant flow going in. So even when they do come out and try to retaliate and fight me off, then I'll still have enough flowing in that it won't even matter. It wouldn't even scratch my surface. And especially when I got the catapults or other artillery just constantly pounding them as well.
Generally, I like to have one big stack of Doom and then one or two smaller stacks of Doom, and that's simply for distraction and misdirection. I always love it taking a smaller stack into a city farther away from the core of their empire that's not particularly well defended, and they decide to move units out of that city. And then hopefully I've got my other large stack of Doom close enough that I can then take them out en route. What's that? You took that archer out of your city? Oh, and you put it right beside my axemen and swordsmen? Oh, stupid. Thank you.
Hook and bait.
Yeah, I guess in general, the bigger a stack of Doom is, the better. But at some point, if you're fighting cities that have, on average, maybe 3 or 4 units in them, there's no point in bringing 20 units. You might as well split that stack up into smaller ones and just attack 2 cities at once, just twice as fast. So in general, I will go for one big stack, but if I notice that I'm just outnumbering the AI, I'll split them up in smaller stacks. I don't know that it technically qualifies as a stack of Doom, but if you have 1 move unit and 2 move units, it might be a good idea to split those up. Though the cavalry stacks that have 2 moves tend to be a lot smaller.
I do like how Best Brian, his response is basically saying that how he organizes his stacks. He actually puts a certain amount of each type of unit into the stack. Very good tactical decision. He says he even includes a scout or an explorer because they're cheap and expendable and are great for probing ahead on the advance and exposing the AI stack before it can counterattack. That's definitely a very good use of stacks, in my opinion. Other than just, like, what I tend to do is just whatever I can get, I'll just throw them in a stack and roll them through. Especially when I'm playing Rome, because I'll just load them full of Praetorians and just crush the enemies.
We are so efficient.
It's because we're all in agreement about stacks of Doom are awesome. No matter what the size or the number.
As long as they are ours.
Yes.
Are you saying size doesn't matter?
Yes, I just said that.
I got a fever, and the only cure is more stack of Doom.
It's not the size of the stack, it's how you use it.
Calling today. In North America, the number is 301-637-7659.
That's 301-637-POLY.
In Europe, 44-121-288-7659.
That's 44-121-288-POLY.
You can Skype us at the PolyCast.
Or email us at polycast@apolyton.net.
For more information on PolyCast,
our sibling shows Modcast and Revcast,
or about PolyCast in general,
log on to the series' official website at polycast.apolyton.net. Sal, would you come back to the show?
Certainly.
Neal?
Yeah, I'd be up for it.
Why not?
It's been fun.
He used the F word.
You've been listening to episode 67 of PolyCast. I've been Wouter Snijders, known as Locutus on the forums. With me have been the wonderful Maki.
Hello, goodbye.
Dan.
Yes.
Imran Siddiqui.
Bye.
Neal.
Ciao.
And Thorburne.
See you later.
Well, this was episode. That's one for the bloopers.
If you want us to go over pronunciation of some people's usernames, we can do that.
So
Yeah,
we've got
how do you
Dave.
DanQ.
DanQ?
You're welcome.
So you've been listening to episode 76 of PolyCast. I've been
67.
70. And don't.
Record. Record date April 18th, 2009. Civilization IV, Warlords and Beyond the Sword sound clips, copyright Take-Two Interactive. Copyright 2009, Apolyton Civilization Site at apolyton.net.